Okay, so good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today I'd like to speak to you about one of my favourite topics. I often decide to write speeches on languages, and this is indeed what I'll be speaking to you about today. And today I've chosen one language in particular, Arabic. I don't speak Arabic myself. That's something I should just point out when starting this speech. But Arabic is a very widely spoken language around the whole world. Just by way of example, we can cite the fact that it is one of the 6 official languages of the United Nations, as you're all aware, being interpreters. And if it were considered one sole language, then it would have 422 million speakers. But as I'm sure you're aware, Arabic can not really be considered one single language, but rather a series of different dialects. In fact, Arabic is almost like a chain of different dialects. As you move, if you go to an Arabic-speaking country and then travel to the country next door, you'll hear slight changes in the way people speak. Then if you continue moving in the same direction. For example, if you move from Morocco across North Africa going towards the east, then you will find that by the time you get to Egypt, the language that people speak on the street is absolutely nothing to do with what you heard back when you arrived in Morocco. And of course, Arabic is also very important because it is a language of religious significance. Millions of people around the world use Quranic Arabic in order to pray every day. And this is the case in countries where people don't even speak Arabic at all, but nevertheless have very large Muslim populations. For example, Bangladesh and Indonesia. I visited both of these countries, and I saw when I was there that people could understand Arabic, or at least they could understand large swathes of the Quran without having the ability to actually speak any of it. Now, when we look at the Arabic language, when we consider it, then there's, of course, one key question. What is it that distinguishes a dialect from a language, and which category should Arabic fall into? Well, in order to look at this question in more detail, we'll have a quick overview of history. As I'm sure you're aware, in the 7th century, Muhammad wrote the Quran. He then conquered most of Arabia as a political and military leader, and then the subsequent generations that followed Muhammad and who were Muslim leaders conquered huge areas of land and brought these areas under Muslim rule. The different caliphates stretched all the way from Spain to Pakistan at different points throughout history. This meant that the Arabic language took root in these countries where previously other languages had been used. These other languages could have included rustic Latin, different forms of Latin. They could have included Berber in North Africa, for example, Coptic in Egypt, or over towards Iran, Persian. But thanks to the military might of the Islamic empires, many of these languages ceased to be used, and Arabic took hold. Since then, we have seen that the Arabic spoken by people on the streets and in day-to-day life has evolved a great deal, like any other language. Nevertheless, Quranic Arabic has roughly maintained a standard. It has remained unchanged over the centuries. But as I was saying, languages naturally do evolve. So the Arabic spoken in homes and in streets has changed a great deal compared to what Muhammad spoke. As a matter of fact, we could compare the Arabic-speaking world to medieval Europe. We could compare Arabic to Latin, because Latin, classical Latin, was the only single language which was really used for study and writing back in medieval times in Europe. Latin on the streets, on the other hand, was very different to what you may have read. This Latin was actually the early forms of French, Spanish, Portuguese, and other languages. Of course, in Europe, all of these languages are recognized as languages in their own right. But in the Arabic-speaking world, this situation is far from clear. There is a great deal of disagreement among Arabic speakers. And in fact, if you take a rural Moroccan and a rural Iraqi, then they will find it very difficult to understand each other. And they won't really be able to find many words in common. And it's also the case sometimes with people who are highly educated. If you take a university student from Jordan and a university student from Tunis, then you may find that they speak in a very different way, and that they have great difficulties in understanding each other. Nevertheless, they can cope. They can find strategies to overcome their linguistic differences. They can use a heavy dose of formal Arabic, Quranic Arabic, to smoothen out the creases in their language use. Or they could use one of the many well-known dialects of Arabic, such as Egyptian, which is very widespread thanks to television, the radio, and the media. Now we could take another example and compare a Moroccan and a Tunisian, and if you were to ask these two people from these two countries to speak to each other, then you may find that in Arabic they have great difficulties understanding each other. But as soon as they start using their colonial language, or rather French, then they are able to speak without any problems. So as I was saying, in Europe we have Spanish, French, Italian, Portuguese. Each of these is recognized as a language in its own right. But all of the different equivalents in Arabic are just considered dialects. Nevertheless, many linguists believe that because of the differences on a grammatical level, because of the differences in the vocabulary used, each of these dialects should actually be considered a separate language. It's more an issue of politics. But Arabs themselves see the Arab-speaking world as one unified whole. They see that they have one language which is divided up by regional varieties. Standard Arabic is used a great deal in everyday life. In Arabic-speaking countries, it's used in political speeches, in the news. It is the form of Arabic which is written down. But it's very difficult to find written Tunisian, written Moroccan, written Egyptian, for example. However, on the television and radio, the only thing you will hear are these dialects, or these regional varieties. You will never hear formal Arabic spoken. There are some who have called for Arabic to be codified. These are people who believe in a pan-Arab nation, for example, or these are scholars who want to create one single language. They believe it would be possible to create a form of Middle Arabic, as it were, which is based on standard Quranic Arabic, but which includes dialectical features and a simplified form of grammar. But there is no one single body which can ensure that this is the case. There's nothing like the Académie Française or the Real Academia. Now, also there are many difficulties in bringing together Arabic speakers. There's a great deal of sectarianism in many Arab-speaking countries, and this creates splits on a political level. And people are also proud of their own regional varieties. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening to this speech, I'm sure that you yourselves are interested in languages. So I would encourage you to learn Arabic. But just a word of caution before you pick up your books and your CDs. that if you are to learn Arabic, then you probably won't be learning one language, but a number of different languages. Thank you.